What is a block in manifestation?
Something we picked up that imprinted this loop that we have low self-worth in this area.
How do you relate to your manifestation? Are you scared of it? Are you scared of it not happening? You get nothing but rewards by doing this work.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I want to start off today with another little nervous system check-in. We did this one at the top of our live call this week with Janelle and thought it was a really great practice to try to drop into our bodies before taking in new information like a podcast. So wherever you are right now, unless you are driving, do not do this while you are driving. But if you're not driving, wherever you are, put one hand on your heart, one on your belly. Just take a deep breath into your body. Allow your belly to expand. And then let everything out. And start to ground into the space around you. Take a look to your right. Notice what's behind you there and to your side. Take a look to your left. Notice what objects and things are to your side and your left. Look above you, maybe to the ceiling or the sky, whatever's above you right now. Look underneath you, to your feet. Look in front of you. And just notice anything around you that your eyes seem to be drawn to. Maybe it's the light dancing in front of you, or I'm looking at the crinkles on my curtain in the window with the sunbeams and little rainbow crystals in front of it. And take that in. And when we're able to really look at our surrounding areas, it helps to signal to our body that we're safe. We see what is around us. We feel grounded in the space that we're in. And we know, okay, I'm familiar with these surroundings. I am safe to relax. Take one more deep breath in. And let it all go. We have a lot of these exercises in our Deep Imaginings. If you guys are members, I'm sure you're very familiar. But if anyone hasn't tried them out before, especially in our calming section of our Deep Imaginings, these are huge. And don't forget, we have our big summer sale going on right now, still going on, so you can get the lowest prices of the season to join our membership. So today's episode is all around facing the fear that our inner self, our blocks, our inner child has around connecting with our manifestation. We are headed into week 2 of our summer challenge, all around healing our biggest block, getting out of our own way. Week 1 was really grounding into our nervous system, learning about what our nervous system is showing us. And week 2 is starting to work with our block. Now, if you guys have checked out our free exercise on Find Your Biggest Block, you will start to get an idea of what direction you're heading in, and you'll learn more about your blocks in today's episode as well. But once you have that block, this week 2 is really getting clear on how do we give a little bit of compassion and understanding to the part of us that is trying to protect us, which is what our block is. It is a piece of us that adopted a limiting belief because it felt that if we believe this limiting belief, it will somehow protect us from pain, shame, rejection, abandonment, And so the first step in trying to unblock that and get that part to see, like, let's see if there's any evidence of not needing to believe this limiting belief. But before we get there, we really need to say, okay, tell me your experience. What did this part of you experience that it felt like attaching to this limiting belief was the safest way through? So we're going to get familiar with that part this week. And we're also going to get familiar with any fears it has, because that is where it starts to push away our manifestation. And the most beautiful thing is when we can sit with the experience of our blocks, why it's operating, why it's doing what it's doing, what it feels, what it believes, all of those things. When we can really validate and sit with the depth of those emotions, we can also create a greater capacity to feel into the more positive emotions. There's an incredible reel I saw from Flynn Skidmore. We've had him on the podcast before. We'll link his episode. I'll link the reel below in the show notes as well. But in the reel, he talks about our ability to feel great joy is intrinsically linked to our ability to feel our deep, difficult emotions, our hard emotions. And so if we feel stuck in pain, but we're not feeling any joy, it means that we're not actually feeling all of our pain. We need to sit with it somatically in a safe way, in a loving way. And when we do that, it cracks open the window to allow more joy and love in. So although this week may be a lot around facing our fears and inner child healing and all of those components, it creates a greater capacity for joy and love and happiness on the other side as well. Hope you guys enjoy this one, and stay tuned at the end for a little expander story. And don't worry, it is not too late to join the challenge. You can join anytime. We still have our summer sale going on. We hope to see you guys in there.
And now, a word from our partners.
If you have not heard of Arma colostrum, let me tell you why it has quickly become my absolute favorite superfood that I've been taking on a daily basis. Arma is an unrivaled nutrient powerhouse. It has 400 plus pure bioactives that are natural molecules that promote healthy functions throughout the body. They include a host of protective antibodies, prebiotic compounds, strengthening peptides, amino acids, trace minerals, immunoglobulins, tissue growth factors, antioxidants, and other natural immune factors that work synergistically to enhance your health. This superfood is actually the first piece of nutrients that we receive, that all mammals receive from their mothers within 48 to 72 hours after giving birth. It is that nutrient-dense supplement to really help our bodies thrive, function, and grow to the best of our abilities. There are 5,000 plus studies on this stuff that really show at any age, taking and ingesting colostrum can help our bodies function on the highest level. Now, I started taking this over the summer and pretty much noticed results immediately. Bloating went down, digestion got better, and my immunity seemed to be a lot stronger. I would come across people with colds or sicknesses thinking I'd be coming down with it in a few days, and it seemed to have really supported my innate immune system. It is completely sustainably sourced from a family-owned dairy farm. They only use the surplus of colostrum, and they're able to remove any unnecessary compounds from the colostrum, like casein and fat, which is part of the reason that some dairy can be inflammatory to some people. I'm someone that's very sensitive to dairy, and anytime I have real dairy, I always wind up taking a lactate, but using colostrum, I've never had any issue with it at all. And in fact, it seems to protect me just as well as the dairy pill against some of the dairy that I eat. And part of that reason that that is happening and why I feel like it's been so effective is because it's helping to rebuild your barriers. We talk about having a really strong barrier protection in the lining of our mouth, our sinuses, our lungs, our gut. Our barriers house 80% of our immune system. It's the first line of defense against everything that we inhale and ingest from the outside world. So when you take Armra close to eating, inflammatory foods or being in an atmosphere where the air quality isn't as optimal, your barriers are tightening to help protect you from everything else going on. So this is one of my absolute favorite superfood products out there on the market. I think it is fantastic. I really see results from it. Feel free to ask me questions if you're curious about it. And we have a discount code for you guys. You can use the code TBM for 15% your first order. Again, that is code TBM for 15% off. And if you're interested, you can get the subscription. That way you won't ever run out and you can always have that immune support.
All right, on to the episode.
So excited to have Lacy and Janelle on today. So we are in week 2 of our TBM summer challenge, all about getting out of your own way. What are your biggest blocks? What are you navigating? What is keeping you stuck? And how can we take a really concentrated effort to work through them, heal them, peel them back, and really have a full transformation on the other side? And so I want to kick off before we start in case there's anyone new tuning in. What is a block and manifestation? How can we start thinking about them? Is a block just a limiting belief? Is a block this entity of something that's pushing away our manifestations? Is it all the above? How can people start to put a visual to what blocks are?
So a block is essentially something we picked up in childhood or adolescence from 0 to 14 that was rooted in pain, shame, or trauma, an experience that we experienced directly or witnessed that imprinted in our subconscious, where we actually manifest from, this loop that we have low self-worth in this area, or this area isn't safe, or this subject is nothing I want to be around because, mostly it all comes down to safety, as we talk about all the time. And I think everything you just mentioned, Jessica, that a block is certainly something that is pushing away your manifestation. It literally can't get in. It's literally blocking it because, as we know, or if you're just tuning in, the entirety of this work is that we manifest from our subconscious, meaning that if whatever you're directly manifesting inside of your subconscious mind has a limiting belief or has a low self-worth belief, it's literally closed, you cannot receive your manifestation. And so that's why I came up with the term unblocking, because you can heal it, as we know through science and as we certainly know through this process. And I do feel like it's pushing away your manifestation in an effort, this old limbic brain, to keep you safe. And so much of our work is unblocking. Janelle, you might have thoughts on that even more directly through a therapeutic lens.
Yeah, you beautifully summed it up. I think it's interesting because a block could be something very small and simple, and also it could be very profound and big. Sometimes people will go, oh, this is a very small block. This is a very quick money block, and I got it from that. And it's a very quick unblocking process. And then some blocks, to me, especially more of attachment, developmental trauma blocks, are bigger. These are ones that I want people to understand, this takes a lot of time and there's layers and there's nuance to it. For example, with I'm not good enough block, and there's a long history of maybe a narcissistic parent or something like that. That one, there's just going to be a lot of layers. So some blocks are small and some blocks are big, and it's not just a 1DI thing. Sometimes they are. Sometimes you go, oh my gosh, that's it. That's my block. And those are so cool when they happen. And then you could just address it really quickly. And then sometimes it's a longer term process of uncovering.
What is the function of a block? This is just me wanting to understand systems and all the things that come into play, because part of having a healing around the block is having compassion for what created the block to begin with. Understanding its functioning to help us in some weird way, even though it's now standing in the way of us. What do you guys kind of see as the function of a block, or why it may have been created in our subconscious at some point?
I see the function of a block being created in our subconscious purely for safety. It's like touching fire. So we don't touch it again. We don't get hurt again. That same thing doesn't affect us again. And Janelle, you have proper training in this, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But to me, having compassion for it, that it was for survival. That's why we created it, so that we never want to experience that form of embarrassment or shame or pain again, or unlovability, abandonment, all of the things that can come with those experiences that we witness or experience directly.
And it's basically just like an automatic response of whatever experience we had. Our brain, again, automatically pairs it with a negative belief, and especially compounded versus, a one-time block versus something that was like very compounded, multiple experiences over and over. That's why blocks can be really small and quick, and they also can take a long time depending on the severity of it. But yeah, basically from that block, there's a negative belief about ourselves or about how we see the world, etc. And it's like a defense mechanism.
Okay, so what are some examples of blocks? Like, I can imagine the audience is like starting to put some together. And one place I like to start or always ask people is like, think about your manifestation and think about, is there any part of you in you that is scared that manifestation is going to come through? That's one way to start connecting to that block. And so what that could look like is, for example, I'm calling in my next home. What fears come up around having that next home? It's like, okay, well, new level of responsibility, needing to furnish it, new things to care for. Will I have the time to do X, Y, Z? It already starts pouring out, and I can like sit back like, okay, where did that come from? What's the story there? What's the relationship to managing a home and overwhelm? What did I learn from my parents and how they took care of a home and what that was like? So just so people can start to get familiar with that, what are some other ways you guys like to pull out blocks or start to take a peek at them?
Well, some of the ways that I like to take a peek at blocks are exactly like you just said. That's actually my number one when I know I'm not expanded enough. A great example is, obviously we have co-care transitioning and rotating right now, and it is the most important role in my life. It's dealing with my kids, and we've had the best person in this role for 3 years that we can trust, rely on as not just family at this point, but as a great friend, And so when I was sitting down calling in this next co-care, it was exactly that. I like to go directly to the rock bottom workshop, not because it was a rock bottom experience, but the energetics of navigating all of the fears I have around it, because it's dealing directly with my kid, and everything that we know about inner child and shadow just like compounds all of those fears. So to me, it's like, will they ever be able to do this or have this or attune like this to her? Or, it's all of it. And I have to look at all of that and work through it. So that's number one. And then the second, I would say, like we are always telling people, is through triggers. Any trigger coming up is usually a pretty good identifier. I'll tell you, though, I'm lazy about those unless I really have to work on it. I'll be like, that wasn't moving enough. I'm fine, But if it's a big one, that'll be my other big indicator. Those are the two biggest. I do it like you. I address fears first because I'm like, okay, where do I lack expansion entirely in this area? And what are the things that are pushing it away, that are freaking me out based on fears in earlier life, in youth?
I feel like I see, when working with people, it's a lot of, well, I just don't think a partner is going to happen for me, or this job is going to happen for me. And it's not that they're scared of their manifestation coming through. They're scared that it won't come through. And right there is their block. Why do you think it won't come through? It's because I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or it's because I'm not important, or I'm not smart enough, or all of that. There's your block. So it could go both ways. But yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of more of that lately, where it's just so obvious because they're afraid that they won't get it.
So that kind of brings me to this other piece of like, what are some of these fears that can be operating them? So these are some of the ones I saw the most common. Fear of not being good enough to receive it, fear of not being worthy enough to receive it, worthy of the happiness, fear of failure. If I go and get this thing, then I have to maintain it or keep it. Or what if I lose it? Am I going to fail? Should I even pursue it? Because then it'll be so embarrassing to fail, which kind of goes with fear of rejection, abandonment. If I fail, will I be rejected, abandoned? Fear of the unknown, not wanting change. Change may have been really scary for them growing up, and so change now feels really scary. Fear of success. It's kind of similar to fear of failure in a way, where it's like, I can't handle the success, or I'm not good enough to handle the success. Fear of lack of trust. trusting yourself. I see this come up a lot, but also trusting that they can't have their needs met. A lot of people sent this in recently of like, I just don't trust that ultimately I can get my needs met fully through the manifestation or through what I'm calling in or through this next thing, or I don't trust that I can really rely on people, or I don't trust that I can trust myself in the next dynamic, that I'll be able to handle it. Like I'm not ready. And part of that is that expansion piece you're talking about, Lacy. And that's why it's like expansion, unblocking, and align action all at once. But part of not being expanded also connects back to blocks.
Yeah.
It's like a multi-directional arrow in that sense. What other fears do you guys see come up, and what do you think roots down to the fear? Like we talk so much about get to the root. So they find the fear, and then how do they get to the root of basically the programming, the blueprint that's operating in their subconscious that allows this fear to exist?
I think the first thing is that, and I've done this too, where I'm like, I shouldn't be afraid. And so I'll just override my fear and push through. But really, that just leads to more dysregulation, and it really doesn't actually integrate the block. So in order to really integrate the block, we have to really get curious about what are we afraid of with this, and ask, why does it make perfect sense that I feel this way? And then from there, go into what do I need in order to essentially feel safe in the world or feel safe around this block? How do I create safety? And so to really actually validate the fear, be with the fear, is there any parts that are actually true here that we need to look at? Then potentially, once we validate it and we're not overriding it, then we can actually have some agency and choice to go, yeah, there is some risk here. There might be, for example, a risk of rejection. That can be a real thing that might happen. And what would help me feel safe? Then we get to have more agency of choosing it versus just overriding it.
That really spelled out either a DI or a workshop. Because that was like a beautiful step-by-step model of not bypassing a fear and really getting it. I feel like that potentially in just simple neuroscience would help overwrite a neural pathway so much quicker if you really lean in and validate and say, is there truth here? Like that's the worst case scenario. And then what could I do to feel safe? I mean, that's a pretty solid DI.
Well, stay tuned for the challenge because we have one all around validation coming up.
That's right.
To help this.
You take the notes on everything that you just said.
Speaking of manifestations, one major manifestation that has come through for me recently is Bond Charge's infrared PEMF mat. Their PEMF mat, which stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field, is a magnetic energy mat that sends energy waves to work with your body's natural magnetic field and improve your overall well-being. Now, I originally heard of PEMF mats back in the day. I used the first one at Lacy's Forest Retreat House, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to do anything at first. And when I laid on this mat, I'm telling you, my whole body just relaxed. My nervous system relaxed, and I fully was able to calm down. Fast forward a few years later, one of our absolute favorite companies, Bond Charge, has launched their own PEMF mat, and it is fully loaded with all the best biohacking techniques you can imagine. So not only do they have multiple frequency settings, one for delta waves to improve deep sleep, one for grounding and earthing that is in the frequency of Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic field frequency, one for alpha waves to increase calm creativity, one for beta waves for logical thinking, conscious thought, or meditation, and one that cycles through all four to really align all different parts of your body. But that's not all. They also have red, near infrared, and far infrared light wave frequencies. You've heard me talk about this before, but red light therapy can be so impactful for muscle soreness, tension, pain in the body, detoxification, and so many more things. It is also packed with tourmaline gemstones, germanium gemstones, and amethyst crystals, which all help to balance your mood, keep you calm, activate spiritual awareness, open intuition, and attract positive ions from your body to keep you in that balanced state. And really exciting news from Bond Charge that all of their products, if you have an HSA or an FSA account, they're all eligible, giving you tax-free savings up to 40% on any product you buy from Bond Charge. This is huge. And it's also really cool that they're getting recognized for how much these biohacking products are impacting your health in such a meaningful way. So if you are interested in trying Bond Charge's new infrared PEMF mat, you can use the code MAGNETIC, that's all caps, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Again, that's magnetic, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Or you can go to bondcharge.com/pages/magnetic and check out some of the other incredible biohacking low EMF products that Bond Charge has to offer. It's interesting because that was one of the things, like, as we were going through and like formulating this challenge too, we were like, for those really big blocks that have been so entrenched, we have so many tools in the pathway that we've used. We're like, how do we even make it more heavy hitting, get to the root there? And that one sort of missing piece is kind of between week 2 and week 3 in this challenge. Where is that validation? It's like, let this fear, let this block exist for a second. Don't try to change it. Get curious about it. Investigate it. Why did it show up? What function was it trying to serve? Like, how was it actually trying to help you? And in that moment of seeing, instead of being mad at yourself or feeling shame of I'm not good enough, like, oh, why can't I just feel good enough so I could get all the things I want? You can't really overwrite that belief system if you're having judgment against it. You need to be in a place of, let's get curious. Why did I pick that up? Why did it make perfect sense, like you said, Janelle, that I would take this belief away from what I witnessed growing up, from peers, from society, from family, whatever the story was? Why does it make perfect sense that I would have that? And then you can start to peel back the layers, you can validate it. I mean, I always think about when my partner and I are having conversations and he's heated or triggered about something and comes to me to vent, the first thing I do is like, well, this is how you can fix it and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I just need you to hear me and my feelings on this first. I need to vent. Then we can go to there after. But like, I really just need to be heard in this experience first. And I think that part of hearing our own pain, our own pain points, our own suffering, the things that we've been through, and giving it licensing that makes sense is such a key component to making that neural pathway shift.
And from there too, once you name and you're like, oh, this is why my fear makes sense, and you're curious all about it, then you get to really gently work with your fear. There's a term in somatic experiencing called titration to kind of help build threshold. So for example, let's say somebody got really, 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 really burned in some dating relationship, and they are like, nope to dating apps, nope to anything. Like, they can't. And it's just overwhelming. They can't say yes to a date. It's just, there's a lot there. And they're like, yeah, I totally understand my why. I know why, they've got curious and it all makes sense. Then what, right? Then you get to the concept of titration would be, okay, what could a little bit of your nervous system handle? Maybe it's when you're out in public and you see a cute guy, maybe you literally just start with looking at them or in their general direction versus running away, right? Or maybe you go in and you can look up and make eye contact. And then maybe you look up and you smile. It's like titrating little bits. And maybe you don't do the dating app yet, but you say yes to a friend that wants to set you up on a date. And maybe you just get to even do a FaceTime date for, like you titrate, you get to do little bits at a time until you can build up where there's enough integration of that fear and that trauma where you could go do something like put yourself out on a dating app or go on a date or, whatever the target goal is.
And that's why I love the aligned action piece, because I think part of healing and even unblocking is those moments where you take a pause, you regulate your nervous system, and you get to choose a different path forward. And I think that is, I mean, aligned action is also part of the reinforcing of the new neural pathway, right? But it's like when you take that action to step through that fear that was almost paralyzing you before, let's say you had fear of rejection in dating, like you're saying, when you can take those actions in real life in small ways of like, okay, my fear is valid, and I'm going to try stepping through it little by little so my nervous system starts to realize that I can have the fear and walk through it too.
Yeah, the titration of it, doing like a micro step and then stepping back and then doing a little bit bigger micro step and then stepping back and then a little bigger actually literally is what helps your nervous system feel secure and safe and then grows capacity to be able to hold more and more.
And it's so interesting because even with overriding neural pathways, you need repetition. As you're having the hypnosis experience with repetition, then you can go out in the real world and kind of expand your nervous system like a rubber band to take that action. What other elements do you guys see important when it comes to understanding our blocks and getting comfortable with them and witnessing them? And maybe also here we can touch on the importance of working with the accountability, working with a friend, working with someone else to help point us in the direction, because so often it's really easy to find other people's blocks or be like, oh yeah, that's the thing in your way. But sometimes it's hard. We almost block ourselves from being able to find our blocks. Someone wrote in that their biggest block is that they don't know what their biggest block is. So what are some ways that you guys have worked with blocks or uncovered them, or examples of how you can sort of peel back the layers?
Finding my biggest block, I really feel like the work we did around the blind spot work was really huge for this. Creating archetypes. I feel like learning through archetypes is tremendous. So if people didn't have the chance to tune into that last year, luckily we still have that blind spot accessibility within this challenge. It'll be within the daily practice. So that's one way that I love it. I certainly discovered some where I was like, did not know that was there, didn't know that was a problem, didn't know that this was, it's those deeper shadows, deeper issues that aren't really presenting themselves directly. Top layers are presenting before them. What about you two?
One other spot I tend to find blocks, and this is relatively new, and this is why we did so much nervous system stuff, but understanding when I'm in a dysregulated state, that usually, especially a prolonged dysregulated state, there is a block. I love parts work. I love internal family systems. And so I like to look at it through that lens of like, a block is a part that has a whole identity and story and narrative and nervous system response. And when my nervous system is out of whack, I'm like, oh, there is a block coming up. And I have to get curious, or I like to get curious about that part story. So even with me, like I am someone who can look at my task list and be like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? Okay, boom, power through, let's go, let's turn it on. And on one end, it's an incredible superpower because it's gotten me to accomplish a lot of things in a small amount of time. And I'm not connected to my magnetic self when that's happening. Like I can truly feel, oh, I must be operating based off of fear because it's moving in a way that's not honoring my needs. Even though it's something I love doing, it's like, how can I go back and understand how to honor my needs within this pursuit forward? And so when I see my nervous system get dysregulated, and for me, like when I'm in flight mode, I'm like, totally shut down. I haven't drank water in an hour. Like I feel like a frantic sort of energy. I can feel that pop on. And the second I register that I'm in it, I'm like, okay, we got to go slow down. Let's figure out what stressor popped up that kicked me into this gear. And how can we just kind of say, like, I know we feel like we need to get all this done right now, but what if we didn't have to get it done right now? What if we took 15 minutes and took a break? Could you be open to that? And then I talk myself into a nice little break, wind down, and then all of a sudden the pressure doesn't feel as big.
So beautiful. And you feel connected to your real core self when you do that. You're back into ventral vagal. You're really in your life force, core self energy.
What about you, Janelle? How do you spot when blocks are coming up? Or even with clients, like how do you help them pinpoint, okay, that's actually the root here?
It's so easy for me, and I think this is for everyone, but just like seeing other people's stuff so quickly, depending on honestly just whatever is actually just present right there in their life. Like you don't have to go looking and searching where your blocks are. It's just like what's happening in your life. Where are your frustration points? Where are your pain points? Where are your sad points? And then you just explore from there to then see the different layers. How do you relate to your manifestation? Are you scared of it? Are you scared of it not happening? There's so many ways to kind of look and dissect to figure out where your block is and what it is. And if it's, again, if it's a minor one or if this is a big narrative, long-term story that has a lot of layers to it. Even for me, I've got my own long-term blocks based off of different childhood imprints that are just, they're ongoing and there's been so much healing around them for me. But it doesn't mean that I haven't unblocked. It's just like I've got another layer there. I think there's some people are like, oh, when I heal, I'm just always going to feel this way. And I'm like, well, there might be just layers that come up and present in seasons of your relationship or parenting or whatever that just kind of resurface. And there's like more nuance to them. So I have my long-term scripts that I'm always looking at and where are they showing up now and how. And then I guess for me, like partnership and parenting, the mirrors of what that brings, there's just different seasons where, you know, my son's 13 and he's wanting more autonomy and more freedom. And right now, like that's been a lot. What's coming up for me is letting him have more and more autonomy, and all of the anxiety that comes up for me, to me is always just like, well, there's my block. Let me look at it. And here's like a new layer that just came forward.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the Magnetic Self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest.
And we have our big summer sale going on right now where you can save $96 off of your membership. Be sure to check the link in the show notes or go to our website, tobemagnetic.com, to check out the sale.
Now back to the episode.
I'm curious too. I almost want to paint the picture for people of what to look forward to and almost the reason of why we take such a concentrated look, specifically with this challenge of going through the biggest block. Like you were saying at the top of the episode, like you can take the lighter ones and go quick through, but The big blocks are likely the ones that you're stuck in the repeated patterns. You keep getting the same kind of test over and over again. You keep trying to turn on the car, but like the engine won't click because you're still operating on that lower self-worth belief, that block, that pattern that's there. And so intentionally looking at it, what are the effects? What is the spider web that takes place when you can actually shift gears and move that block into, wow, we just pulled back that whole layer and I'm actually shifting neural pathways and I'm thinking differently and I'm acting differently. And sure, yes, there might be another layer to uncover at one time, but I have just leveled up in my life and my experience because I looked at this block. Like, what are some of the juiciness that people can look forward to when they go through this too?
The people in the challenge, I'm thinking majority are going to be doing some sort of family of origin narrative story attachment thing. The really big blocks are basically how we were parented or not parented, and then what's the narrative that we have around ourselves because of that. And they could be so different. So like the really big blocks are not going to be just the little one-off incident. They're going to be more of looking at your family of origin story and the narratives that you picked up from those experiences. So different types of attachment trauma or developmental trauma from a parent that was XYZ or whatever needs that did not get met. So they're going to be, majority of people doing this challenge are going to be doing a really big narrative block. And so yeah, you have so much to look forward to by doing these blocks and looking these stories, and not to be discouraged if you get 1, 2, 3 layers of the onion off and there's more to go, to not be discouraged, because it's so rewarding when you can go, yes, this is what happened to me when I really look at it. And this makes sense. You know, it's so liberating and exciting when you really go, okay, I see myself. You know, you do all this inner child work and you feel your own nervous system settle. The number one thing to help our nervous system settle more than anything else is a safe and secure relationship, whether it's external or internal. So all of TBM work is about building a safe and secure relationship with yourself internally. And so the more we build and build that for our nervous system, it impacts our life in literally every way imaginable. I mean, you get nothing but rewards by looking and doing this work. The rewards are endless to me. And to celebrate whatever wins and gains, and also to know, like, if it took 20, 30 years of programming and being in this narrative, you know, you're going to have some breakthroughs. The breakthroughs exist, but healing is messy and it's not linear. And there's always layers, but I just don't want anybody to be discouraged by that because it is so exciting to have a breakthrough and then have it again and go through the journey.
You could peel off one layer and have a whole new reality on the other side. One layer can have a huge impact.
Huge.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to mention too, my core wounds, like I'm still chipping away at them, but also as I don't even know if this is a word, but delayer along the way, I'm manifesting. So that's another great thing to remember. You could get really discouraged hearing like, they might take some time, but the universe, the way that it works, it's really directly with the manifestations you're calling in. For instance, if you're calling in something like a job and it's a toxic boss situation that you've encountered before and you're working through that because of your narcissistic parent, you know, but that narcissistic parent work is going to take time, that you're still able to manifest through expansion, through aligned action and processing, unblocking on that journey. You're still able to manifest a great job and maybe a little bit better of a boss scenario, you know, so just note that even though these core blocks take longer, that you will continue to manifest along the way. And like Janelle saying, it's just having grace with that process. You know, it takes time. All of that time that it formed, it takes time to undo.
Lacy, this is kind of like a spiritual question in this realm, but could we be so bold as to say that what our soul is authentically desiring, like the manifestation, if it's from an authentic place at this moment in time, is actually in the pursuit of connecting with it, is going to help us work through the exact layer of healing we need to work through at this moment of time. And then it's like the next thing we want to manifest is helping us work through the next layer. It's almost like our manifestations that we desire are like given to us or connected to us because it's the exact route we need to go through for our healing.
That's 100% what I believe that manifestation is. It's interesting because through this work isn't that different. I mean, it is radically different from any manifestation work, and certainly was when it started. But it's not that different from a lot of modalities and healing and various self-help programs out there. But the difference is that people are using their manifestation to completely transform their lives. I believe the universe dangles these carrots in front of you in an effort to get you back to your whole, worthy, authentic self. I believe if you're like taking away the entire material plane and just getting into completely the spiritual plane, that's the number one driver to consciousness, is to just be and be who you are, be your essence without any ego. And talking about pain, shame programming, the masks we wear, leading the way or being a part of you. And so I believe that the universe's intention is to dangle these material things, and not just material manifestations, even relationships are material, these things in an effort to get you there. So it's 100% what I believe manifestation is.
I mean, how freaking cool. The universe is literally like, you're going to get this fun thing and you're going to heal on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what separates this from anything else out there. And I think it's also what separates how high the statistic results are for people from other methods. You're really being led by the universe.
What are you guys thinking of taking through the challenge this year? What blocks are coming up? What themes, tests, triggers?
I know bigger things that are glaring at me, sure, but I want to actually like do a little discovery work to see what to take. You know, and I think this baby's going to bring up some stuff that I'll probably want to take a look at in there too.
1,000%. So if anyone doesn't know, we have this free exercise. Anyone can access it. If you DM us or comment on any of our posts, the word unblock, and we'll send you the link to it. But it's essentially finding what your biggest block is. It does like a quick inventory of those fears that are coming up, what you're manifesting, your tests, your triggers. And we went into specifics in the test and trigger. We're like, okay, here are all the options for tests and triggers. Where's conflict in your life? Where's your nervous system dysregulate? Like, we checked all the boxes in there so you can really take that. And it'll be so clear when you get to the bottom. You're like, oh my God, it's this one dynamic. This is the pattern. This is the dynamic. I can clearly see it. And I highly recommend too, if you have a friend who's in this community or is interested in this type of work, like share it with them and go over what surfaces for you. Because I feel like so many times we learn from each other and we start to understand ourselves better as we're hearing someone else talk about it. So be sure to buddy up, find someone else doing this. You can definitely go into our community group and find other people doing this work, but check out what your biggest block is. That's what we're going to take through the challenge. That's what we are taking through the challenge. So as we're going through this challenge, it's like, okay, this is a lot of like intense stuff to look at. We got you in the coverage of there will be fun exercises to do with your inner child. When you look at your block and your block is like, I'm afraid that I did this. Well, whatever your inner child felt like it didn't get in childhood, you are going to schedule that fun time with yourself. Part of your homework in this challenge is going to be to do the things that you didn't get. Meet your own needs. Be that secure attachment to yourself. And let's have a fun inner child summer too.
Yeah.
A magnetic inner child summer.
Love it. Love it. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. This is so insightful, learning so much always from both of you. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. And if you are starting to get a taste for this To Be Magnetic work, or maybe you want to join our upcoming summer challenge, or even just try out our new Regulate DIs, the fight or flight, the freeze or fawn, which will help get you back into that nice, calm, regulated state, You can join with our big summer sale going on right now for $96 off. It is a limited time sale, so be sure to join before it expires. Okay, let's hear this week's expander story. If you have an expander story of something kismet or a manifestation that has come through or an incredible revelation that has come through during this challenge, be sure to share it with us so we can help expand the community. There is a link in the show notes. Just record a quick voice note. We are so excited to hear from you.
Hello, incredible people at TBM. Hey, Jessica. Hey, Lacy. So I just want to quickly say that I am 1 month into TBM and started the challenge. One of the major things that I've been calling in is spiritual friendships and divine friendships. And I was not sure how it's going to happen because back home here in India, I'm not kind of meeting anybody. My old friends have left my life. I'm happy in my solitude. I know that this is a phase that I need to go and grow through. But there are also days when I was like, I wish I could share this with somebody who's doing the same thing. So on the TBM Manifestation Challenge page, I posted a mood board of 4 images and the things that I'm calling in. And one of them was indulgent self-care. Another one was divine friendships, which is big for me. And yesterday, day 5, I did the magnetic self DI, which was again such a synchronicity because I was listening to the expanded podcast Best in Clarity episode where Lacy says that she did the magnetic self DI and boom, when I opened day 5, it was right there and I was like, okay, universe, I see you. I did it and I was like blown away. Now, at night, this TBM member, Chelsea, she messaged me and she said that she really resonated with the vibe of my mood board that I posted on the challenge page and that she's calling in the same thing. She's feels the same aesthetic and the mood. And she hosts a group on WhatsApp with TBM members. And I was like, this is too good to be true. Like, this is unreal. And she asked me if I would want to be a part of this Divine Feminine group. And I was like, yes, I would be honored. And oh my God, for the first time in my life, I'm having conversations with these 8 incredible women who are on the same journey to unblocking. We're doing the challenge together. We are healing, we are growing, we are expanding. And for the first time, I'm just like, I'm able to share and I'm able to receive authenticity in return. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. We're just 5 days into the challenge. And this is big for me. This is the universe telling me that I'm on the right path. And just excited to see where all this is going.